Today we're going to talk about data systems, where they're stored, what's used to store them. And we're going to look at the most common ones, which is Google Drive, OneDrive and Dropbox. Which one should you use? Which one's best fit for your business? Well, clearly Google Drive works well with G Suite and Gmail systems. Similarly, OneDrive also works with the Microsoft environment. Dropbox will work with either. So one of the disadvantages, if you like, of OneDrive would be that you must have a Microsoft account, whether you're internal or external, to comment on that document and edit that document, and the same with the Google stuff. But with Dropbox, it is irrelevant. You do not need an account, and it doesn't matter whether you or your third parties who you're sharing with are on Google or Microsoft or whatever other system. Dropbox will work across them all. The other thing regarding Dropbox is that it does integrate well with Microsoft Office. It has badges within the Microsoft Office suite. It has a default save as location built into all the Microsoft products. And similarly with Gmail and Google Chrome, it's got extensions which integrate directly into Dropbox, such as Save into Dropbox. So that's a basic overview of 3 common systems that people use. The problem is, in businesses, we may use all 3, and there's a general mixture of files stored all over the place. What makes that worse is that users are just using any old account to get these things going. They do what they have to do to share files with whoever they need to share them with, using whatever method. So if they've got a personal Gmail, for example, they'll log into that and they will use their Google Drive, for example, to share files with a third party. Or they may use their own Gmail account on their own Dropbox account. And again, they're sharing files. So those files are genuinely stored against that personal user, and the data is stored within that user's personal system. There's no control for the business. And just to go to the next level, if you think about a user logging into their personal Gmail and Google Chrome, for example, then all of a sudden all passwords used on that computer by anybody are synced to that user's Google account. So they have a record of every single password that business has. So having security and controls around your data is really important, and really trying to identify one system to use and then stick with it and make sure you've got the right version and you use it well with all modern security methods. So we're going to focus on Dropbox today, and we're going to look at some of the options and alternatives that you can have within that. So first of all, we're going to look at a typical scenario with individual accounts. So we've got a director, Mike, and we may have another director as well, and they have got their own personal Dropbox. And then there's the management tier, there's maybe 1 or 2 managers, and then you've got your admin and accounts areas, and then your general users. So what we're looking at here is one of the directors, he has his personal Dropbox. It may be a Pro or a Plus account, which you're paying $100 a year for, maybe US. And he's got a management folder. He shares that with other directors, and he may share that with management as well. And that's great. They can see those files and work on those files together. Same with the admin and accounts, that's shared across the management and admin and accounts. And of course you've got your company folders, and this company folder here with all these files is shared all the way across to all users can see that. And that's marvellous. If somebody's out on the road and they need a manual, for example, and it's stored in the company structure, they can access that. So you may think, well, that's a good setup. There are a few problems with this. It has its limitations. First of all, everyone needs their own Dropbox account, and they may need a lot of data. So you may be paying for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7 Dropbox accounts at $100 US per year for each account, because this is going to be storing more than 2 gigabytes of data across each account. The other problem you've got is that file management. If this user here creates a file here, then they are the owner of that file. If their device gets lost, stolen, or they delete that file, then where do we recover that file back from? We have to know who's deleted it. So we've identified it's this user, so we go and find it from there and recover from here. It is not centrally managed. Similarly, if somebody here in the admin and accounts moves an entire folder and screws everything up, it impacts across everybody's accounts, and we've got to then find out who's done it and then reverse what's been done there. The file management and file ownership is done on an individual basis. If you do delete a file, this version does give you 30 days recovery, and that's no use. The personal versions, you may use a file on the 30th of September, and you may only use that file once a month. So the next time you use that file could effectively be the 31st of October. That's 31 days later. And if you found out that that file had been destroyed or overwritten by mistake on the 30th of September, you can't go back a month because it's gone. It's too late. So 30 days is not very much for you to work with those files that you only use once a month or once every 6 months. So file recovery, file deletion, file ownership, file management is all done on an individual basis, and there's no central controls over that. The other thing is, if somebody over in admin accounts opens a file and then somebody over in management opens the same file, you're going to get a conflicted copy. You're going to get 2 copies of that file. So you're going to get issues. There's all sorts of dramas there. Now, I'll just step in and mention that the business version does have systems that avoid all that, but the personal version does not. Okay, finally, reporting on files. So again, there's no central management, central reporting. Who's accessed what, where, when, who's it been shared with on a third-party basis. Well, on an individual basis, you've no idea which individuals have shared what files to which companies. But on a business edition, you've got all that reporting and you can see what's been happening. We've mentioned about device controls. If a device gets stolen, there's all the controls around that. And of course, what's the worst case that can happen? A user has their own personal Dropbox account and it's locked to their mobile phone. They leave the company for whatever reason, or you try and log in, you can't log in, it needs their mobile phone to log in, you can't get hold of them, they're in another country, on holiday, or just simply gone. You cannot access that Dropbox account because it's locked to their mobile phone, it's waiting for a text message or whatever. So there's some major risks on using Dropbox on an individual basis. So my questions are, what concerns do you have about data security? How do you maintain control of your data right now? Are you meeting modern day security standards for your data? And how comfortable are you with the content currently being on Dropbox in an individual basis? So the next stage we're going to look at is Dropbox for Business. So here we have Dropbox Business, which is set up completely different to Dropbox Personal. As you can see, the company owns the data. So this here is now the Dropbox Business, and all the company data is stored here, effectively like a server or file server. And the data is just dumped all in here, and these are individual folders. We can call them team folders. So you can see, for example, directors, management, admin accounts, and a company folder in this example. Also, within this Dropbox Business, we have users. So I've listed a lot of users and I've made some groups as well. And it's clear we can say, look, this user, Michael and Scott, they have got access to the directors folder. Or if there's a lot of users, we would just put all the users in a group called the general users group, and we'd say anyone that's in that users group has got access to the company folder. But by default, no one has access to anything. So it's important that we define the structure of the data, define the users and the roles and the groups, and which group and who has access to what on a editing or read-only version. Now, you can see here in our directors group, we've got a couple of people, but these people would also be in all the other groups as well. So they would have full access to everything, all files. So let's go back to what we were talking about before. Let's delve into the file ownership and management and things like that. If Steve deletes a company file, that's okay. We're logging in here at the company end and we're recovering that file. All data is owned by the company, not by Steve. Steve is just accessing that data from his account. So the other thing to mention is that if one of these users creates a file, that's fine, they've created that file, but it's owned by the company, not by the user. So if they disappear, the file is still here. If a file is deleted, we can recover it up to 90 days as opposed to the 30 days on the other Dropbox versions. File deletion, file version history is all covered, as well as the ownership and management. Conflicted copies is great. If someone's got a file open and somebody else opens it, it flashes up on the screen. This file is being used, and it tells you who's using the file within the business. So you can't possibly have this conflicted copies scenario. It gives you the option of opening that file in a read-only version, and you can just have a look at it. Or you can ask the other person for access, and it's all done within your native Microsoft Office apps. It comes up on the actual document itself. It cannot be missed. Reporting is fantastic. You want to know if Georgina has shared a file to somebody else. All those reports are available on tap. So there's a lot more controls and reporting. You can see who's shared what to who and when. And again, all the file history, who's opened what file, when has it been worked on, who by, how long for, etc., etc. So the full reporting. Device controls is great because if a device does get stolen, we can remotely wipe it. So the moment that device is turned on and connects to the internet, it is remotely wiped. So no company data is lost there. And again, if people try and lock it to mobile phones or whatever, that doesn't matter because we go in at the top end, the company end, where we own all the data and all the accounts. These accounts are owned all by the company in one area. So it's important to mention that if you want to use Dropbox for Business, then each user must have a Dropbox for Business account. It must be a fully paid account version of one of these. That's a monthly fee. You cannot access this data, this company internal data, with a lower account than that and work on it. It's also worth mentioning, if you do have our own like a free or personal account that you use for other things, they can be tagged into the bottom of this, so you can access 2 Dropbox accounts simultaneously on any device. It doesn't matter what it is. So in a nutshell, Dropbox for Business is a more enterprise level solution with all the bells and whistles for controlling company data in a central place with all the concerns taken out of who owns the data and where is it going. So that's the end of Dropbox for Business.